Welcome to the weekly Roc Open Mic. Couple reminders. We do this call for you folks. We got a lot of feedback that you want to hear what we're working on, what's new, and you want to do some R&D or rob and duplicate automation ideas from your peers. With that, if you're interacting with us on Discord, please either respond to us in a thread or tag us, because we're all monitoring like a ton of channels at the same time. Also, if you're new to Rewst, use Discord. Our best MSP automators out there all participate in the Discord. That doesn't mean you have to go post in the coop, but if you get stuck, posting your channel and just say, hey, I'm stuck. Here's a link to my workflow. What am I doing wrong? That's why we all use Discord. It's to build up the community, as well as allow our Roc people to interact with you so you can become successful with automation. Also, this call is very technical. So if you're a decision maker or an owner and you're not building workflows, just be prepared to hear a lot of technical stuff. This call is typically for people that are building automations. But if it interests you to learn what people are building, feel free to sit around and listen to what people are talking about. With that, I think that's all I got. Don't forget to add time savings to your workflows, folks. With that, I'm going to pass the call over to Ash. Ash, what's up?
You, Aaron. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to switch up the schedule on us a little bit. So anybody who is used to the normal order, I'm keeping you on your toes, but we are going to start the same as we normally do with Dev. So Nick, go ahead.
Thanks, Ash. Welcome everybody to the weekly Roc Open Mic. I will start by sharing my screen and talking about some work we've done this week on the development and product teams. Everybody should see my screen. All right. So we've got a few new features and items this week. Webhook integration is available, or WebRoot integration is available to all users now. That was just turned on this morning. And if you're a WebRoot user and you've been waiting to use WebRoot integrations, they're now available for you. We also added a select all and a multi-select by tag feature for integration overrides on the triggers drop down on workflows. And George built a really cool app platform component for Markdown. I'm going to have him demo that in just a minute, but let's talk about some bugs we fixed real quick. We added some handling for client-side error we were seeing when viewing a trigger that has a version control history from a user that has since been deleted. It was crashing UI in that case. We fixed that issue. We fixed a bug where removing input variables from a trigger wasn't actually removing them from the database, which is sometimes causing errors in workflows if those input variables were required, for instance. And we fixed a bug with cron trigger validation where it was reporting valid for uncompleted cron strings. So validation's been improved for that field. Fixed a small label and title mismatch for WebRoot global overrides field, and fix some logic for daily cron job that we run to roll up task stats for our upcoming new dashboard. We've still got a number of things in QA review and a couple others awaiting some enhancements. We're working hard to get those things out to you guys. And multiplayer workflows V1 that Jordan demoed a couple weeks ago. We're still taking a look at some of that code, and Bitdefender is also in development. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to George to show off this really cool thing that he made. George, you with us?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Give me 1 sec here. Should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
Hey, so this is a oops. In case you haven't seen App Platform before, this is the page builder, where we build pages. Markdown has been requested for like about a year now, and we finally were able to ship that. It works pretty similarly to the HTML container, where you can add the raw text into the body of the element, and it'll render as you would expect. We also support Markdown. Jinja rendering in the rendered body. This includes referencing output variables from workflows, from page workflow runs, or just like complex multi-line Jinja expressions. Oh, let me change this to preview. And this will actually expand to the height of the container, but you can see this being rendered here. This will match the theme that you design for your apps, including stuff like font here in this Markdown site. You notice the font is different because it's serif in the theme compared to this other page. And additionally, you will be able to use this as a workflow input component, similar to the dropdown and other inputs that we added recently. So if you had a triggering button or another trigger on this page, with workflow, you can just set this entire multi-line content as the workflow input for the triggering workflow context. It's pretty robust right now, but we plan to keep improving it even more. Yeah, any quick questions? Sounds
What
good.
was your inspiration for building this, George?
Pizza was my inspiration for building this because he got workflow multiplayer shipped pretty quickly, the initial version of it, and I wanted to quickly ship out something too. So here we are.
It looks really good, George. I have a question. Do you think we'll ever have preview available in HTML like you have with Markdown?
Yeah, we could do that. By the way, thanks for reminding me. I did also add the monocle editor to the HTML container now. So this looks like a proper HTML syntax highlighting and autocomplete and stuff. But yeah, we'll get that.
I bet you won't add to HTML preview by next week, George.
You won't.
We'll see. Thanks, everyone.
Looks great, George.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, George. All right. We are going to jump into our education update first, and then we'll go over to Daniel for the marketplace update.
All right. Hey, guys. I get my camera on here. Let's see you try to count those hats. Also, I heard in the chat that it was Adam's birthday, and I did get him a gift, but then I forgot he was in England, so I'll just keep it Sorry, Adam. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the education update, and we'll go from there. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's start with the game tip of the week. First of all, I'm just going to say forget all the new games coming out because they're all trash, and you should get a Vita and play Final Fantasy Tactics because I started playing that again this week, and I am re-obsessed with that game because it's still amazing. So spoilers for a future retro branded video, except for the new Zelda game. Definitely get that. That's my my game tip of the week, or game tips of the week. All right. I know I just offended somebody by saying all the new games are trash. All right, shout outs to Chris, Cameron, Andres, David, Darlene, Carl, Rudy, and Jose for passing the certification exam. And we had 3 perfect scores this week. So we had Alexander, Ben, and Sean. So shout outs to you guys for those perfect scores. For those who are interested in taking the foundation certification exam, you could check those out in the Cluck University section of Rewst.help, where you will have the Getting Started Rewst Foundations and electives to help you get there. I just want to say, just as a side note, definitely check out those electives if you haven't seen them already. There are some cases where going through the 100 series, it's good to pop over to the elective section and check out some of those videos for some extra context. They can really help you in moving forward. So take a look there and go get that certified Rooster badge. You'll also get access to our not so super secret Discord channel. Otherwise, if you have any questions while you are going through the content, check us out at the Cluck U Discord channel. We are there to help you as you are going through your learning journey. So please let us know if you have any questions. And we also have office hours and the Roc AMA available each week. Office hours are for those who are going through the 100 series and you have questions in implementing what you're learning. And then the Roc AMA are for those who are certified and have questions, more in-depth questions as you're going through building and implementing. So check those out. Otherwise, just a few updates. We got a lot of things cooking, so we will be letting you guys know of some big updates as we move along in the coming weeks. But just as a reminder, we have shifted the 100 series to self-serve for the time being. And the 200 series is available for those who want to learn about clean automation building, basically enhancing your ability to build effectively and efficiently. Go check those out. 200s are run by the famous and legendary Eddie Chow. So definitely check that out if you have been certified and you want to continue on your learning journey. Otherwise, we have some forms that you can fill out to give us feedback. Always feel free to reach out in Discord if you guys have any feedback, questions, topics that you'd like to discuss. We are all ears, so please let us know. And for just some basic updates on the doc site, we have our open mic video up from last week, and we have an update to the least privilege access requirements page for ConnectWise. We got some updates there, some fixes. So that's going to be it from my side. Short and sweet this week, but a lot more to come. So back to you, Ash.
Thank you, Brandon. Awesome. All right. So I think that there's some people who said 7. Were they right on the hats? We'll have to, you can let them know in chat. Now we're going to jump over to Danial, Marketplace Update.
Hey, everybody. I have some crates for you. First off, I want to shout out to Adam, Matt, JP, who will be given a demo soon, and there's some other people in there who helped out with some of the bugs. I think Gregory is always helping out with those. Maybe Jack. I can't remember who else I saw tackled some of these, but I'll talk a little bit more about some of the one crate that we talked about a little bit last week, or I brushed over. I can go into that a little bit more, and then we're going to have a demo, and I can talk about some bugs too that we fixed. So the first crate that we have released, I think it was released maybe late last week, early this week, was compromised user response. So one of the things that I want to point out on here is that it will report on compromised users, and it will. We also have in the documentation here what it does and does not do. So you can configure this, the selectable actions for forcing password changes, invalidating user sessions, blocking sign-ins, generating various reports. There's also some information on what it does not do. We're trying to be more thorough on our documentation here, and all the team is doing a great job of making sure that you guys have the information that you need. The second crate that I wanted to talk a little bit about was released last week, and it's report and action disabled M365 users with license. So this one, I'll point out on here that this does not auto remediate these user accounts. This crate is for checking for disabled users with licenses assigned. So we'll check for that. We'll notify you, but we will not remediate those accounts. The last thing I'll bring up as for the new features is the document shared mailboxes crate, which has been refactored, which I'll let JP talk more about. And I'll kind of jump into some bugs here. We had some fixes to the user onboarding crate. The sub workflow in circumstances where you have on-premise exchange and ImmyBot, there was a bug in there, and so we've fixed that one. We've updated the purchase licenses by a CSP sub workflow to check the date. We were checking a date against a time in this one, and it was causing errors. We've added some failure transitions to help out with handling the add users to Rewst via group crate. So instead of just failing the workflow, we'll let you know what the failure is in a variety of ways. We fixed a non-authorized error on the Rewst get Microsoft CSP customer step, which was caused by an incorrect CSP ID. And then we also did some work on a Ninja RMM sub workflow to run PowerShell on. It was not matching the preferred DC. The org DC was not matching the preferred DC. New crates coming. We've talked about this one for a little while. It's still in the works. SonicWall firmware update crate. This is actually a duplicate. This is done now. We have workstation onboarding that Matt is hard at work on. And then we have a utility crate coming out that we'll be able to discuss more. We're hopefully going to have some more utility crates that are going to be surfacing in the coming months. This one is going to be for error handling and reporting. But yeah, with that, maybe I'll pass things off to JP.
Hello. Today I'm going to talk through the latest refactor of an ITGlue documentation crate. In this case, we're doing shared mailboxes. So we'll go ahead and so this follows kind of the same pattern as the others. I'll talk a little bit more about them maybe. Right here, we branch off to ITGlue, and kind of like the others, I've set up an org variable where you can go into revert to the old version if you wanted to for some reason. I'm all about choices here, so there's a organization variable here that you can set. This is kind of the meat of the revision. Got some data collection here and some ITGlue error handling. I found that was very important as I was seeing a lot of random failures even in just testing. I've got some data collection for users as well, which was a big thing in the reduction of task reduction, because we did some, instead of iterating it over each user and getting certain pieces of information, we're able to get that information in a more bulk fashion. Then these are two, oops, didn't quite mean to click on this. Okay, these are two sub workflows that this one, these are both reused from the document users implementation of this crate, and they're used to get, this one is basically used to get the send as and full permissions information, and this one here is going to get us our friendly licensing information. Then here we do all of our, I guess, Ginger Magic. We figure out what the resulting data is going to look like for all the different accounts or shared mailboxes, figure out what we need to update, what we need to create, and then we branch off to what should look like a familiar workflow if you've played around with this at all. not that one, but this one. Here is where we're going to do our bulk updates and creations. And this is where the really interesting parts of this workflow reside. If you go in here, it's all in the JSON, or I'm sorry, it's all in the Jinja. And it's this is where we define some macros to do some HTML rendering and how we format our JSON requests for our bulk updates. So very cool stuff, and they result in an entry that looks kind of like this. And we saw, just based on some handpicked samples, about a 75% reduction in our overall task execution, which is pretty decent. So that's kind of all that goes into this one.
Jareth, great job. Is that in prod now, or is that something you're working on?
Oh, that's in prod. I just shipped it out. Barely tested it. No, I'm just kidding. Nope,
Yep.
it's in prod today. So
You waited until Friday morning.
absolutely. Yep. I was thinking 5 o'clock on Friday, but figured I'd be careful, right?
Thank you, JP.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are going to jump over to Tim. Tim says he has something to show us today.
Hey, yeah. So this week I kind of went down a rabbit hole of playing with something I haven't messed around with until this week when I reset up my home lab, and that is Azure Arc. So I was curious what we can do with Azure Arc with Rewst. And I learned that back in December, they came out with a way to use a run command with Azure Arc. So I wanted to see how this would work with a Rewst workflow, and if we could use this as another way to run commands in Rewst. So for those of you who are aware or not, in Rewst, we when you go through our setup, we'll ask you what RMM you have. And when we talk about RMM, we're really just talking about some application that can execute code on an endpoint. So some things that we call RMMs, you know, in Rewst terms, but are not really RMMs, are stuff like Screen Connect or ImmyBot, or the Agent Smith that we have. So I was just curious to see what we can do with Azure Arc for the same purpose. So digging into a little bit as well, I was assuming to begin with that it only works on servers, but they do support client operating systems. However, they expect it to be a client that is always on, always connected to the internet, something like a digital signage or point of sale solution. Not necessarily for a typical desktop. They recommend you stick with Intune for that, but Intune has its own set of issues. But playing with Azure Arc, I was able to get a few machines installed. And when you install the machine in Azure Arc, they'll go into a resource group and show up in here in your Azure portal. So if I look at maybe a domain controller, I can see a little bit about it. See what is configured or do configuration stuff. Again, I haven't played with this a lot, but you can see properties of the machine. I see this as a virtual machine. It's running Windows, what the agent version is. There's a bunch of other things you can do as well. We'll get into some of that. But looking at the documentation from Microsoft, I was able to build a workflow to make use of that Azure Arc REST endpoint for Microsoft Azure. And what this thing can do, it can run commands. It can, I'd put a couple of other operations that they support in here. So if I want to do a list machines and run that and see what my results look like, I'll see that I have a list of computers and properties about those computers that gets returned. So I can see stuff like what kind of firmware it's using, a little bit about the hardware, the processors. I think I saw network information, network profile, the interfaces, IPs of it, things like that. Typical things that you would see if you're doing inventory of computers. See the operating system, all these things. Also set this up to run PowerShell commands. So this is just an existing options generator that I just kind of repurposed to use the Azure Arc actions. But we'll see here that the downside of it is that although the API commands run and return pretty quickly, it takes about 1.5 minutes to get a result back from a server. So not ideal for a lot of cases, but for some use cases, it might just be fine. Not gonna wait on that to finish. But I was able to, get this thing to work just by taking our existing run PowerShell, unsynced it, hacked in Azure Arc to the beginning of it, and set it to run this. And just built my workflow to do the same thing. It's a duplicate, but that's about it. Again, it takes a little bit of time, but I did learn some of the pros and cons of Azure Arc versus some of our other ways of doing things. The nice things about it are, when you set up a server, these days with Microsoft, Azure Arc is built in. You don't have to install any other software. It does have some other cool functionalities, and if Kelvin's around, I'm sure you can jump in and talk about those as well. But it can do things like help you manage your SQL servers or security definitions or settings with Defender. It manages patching. I think this is it the only way to do the extended support for patching on end-of-life operating systems?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Also, I saw that it works with Lighthouse. So, there's some capabilities there to kind of make things easier to manage through that. Some cons of it, again, it's slow. It does take a while to give us results. So if you're trying to use this for an options generator, it's not going to be super pleasant. It's also in preview, but typically when things are in preview, they eventually become real. Again, they don't recommend it for workstations. If you are using Lighthouse, well, depending on whether you are or are not using Lighthouse, you might have to finagle with your integration overrides and your triggers for Microsoft Azure. And also, cons are we don't support this in our crates right now. And again, it is slow. And because it's so slow and not good for options generators, it may or may not become valuable for everyone. But I just want to show it in case it's valuable for anyone. And I'll share this workflow with anyone that wants a copy of it. That's about it.
Thank you, Tim. I see some conversations. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask before we move on, or are we good? Good. All right, so we did have a few adjustments. One of our demos can't present technical difficulties, so I'm actually going to switch things around a little bit more. We're going to have Ryan from our team jump in and demo something that he's been working on.
Hey, so we are going to, I spent all day making this workflow. You see it does many useful things. And we're going to run it and see what happens. Of course, when I run it now, it's gonna hang on running. Oh no! Whoa! It has failed. Let's troubleshoot and figure out why my workflow is not working. And this is something you're all going to encounter. Your workflow is failing. So let's take a look at our results. We're going to jump in here. My useful action passed, but my data list companies has failed. So I go in here and it gives me a reason phase in the middle. Internal server error. Pull down. That just means data is broken, but it's not. Let's go look into this response under it, and then error. And we're going to see that the logged in resource, so my API user, does not have the adequate permissions to query the entity type. Basically, I'm missing permissions. This, for Datto, they're really good and they're giving me quite clear what's missing. ConnectWise does that too. It will give you a very clear, you're missing permissions here. Microsoft will just give you like a forbidden, I believe, or something similar to it. But pretty much everything's going to tell you in some way that you're missing permission, you're going to get unauthorized or forbidden. Now, how do I figure out what permission I'm missing? Well, we got to figure out what we're doing. So you can kind of cheat a little bit and look in your URL. And when I look at the bottom here, I'm trying to hit companies. I'm trying to do a query. So with that, I'm probably missing the permission for it. So if I go into my Autotask API user, so this is my permissions that I made. If you are a Datto user, you are probably using this API user system thing. I just copied it so I can edit it. I will go CRM because that's where my companies are. And look, I'm missing my permission. So if I come in here and give it a permission, save it, it will hang on saving. And then I come back here and I retest. Voila. It now works and I'm able to get my empty list of customers, but at least I'm able to see them. Now, a common question is, what permissions do I need for Rewst, for my PSA, for whatever? That is a very hard question because Rewst can do whatever your API allows it. So we obviously recommend doing least privilege for everything. We have documents for least privilege. So for Autotask, we have one here. For ConnectWise Manage, we have one here as well. These are least privileged to the point where our crates will work, but you can even least privilege them more. So for example, here, service desk for manage, service desk merge tickets, add, edit, inquire. If you're not using our crate for prompt to combine similar tickets, you actually don't need this permission, so you can remove it. Similarly, if you're in Datto and you used the API, this generic API user system role type or security level, just know that in here, it's asking for a lot of permissions that Rewst doesn't necessarily need. Like I wouldn't really need to know like knowledge base documentation, tagging, auto form. So if you're looking for least privileged stuff, go through your integrations, go through your API users, and just make sure that you are actually least privileging what you have Rewst to do. And that is my quick demo on how to troubleshoot your permission issues.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, so we have a question. Oh, Lisa, was that a question or just a? Lisa was raising the roof. All right, so we have one more demo. Like I said, we had a few cancellations. So, Devon, you've got the floor.
So I get the whole floor. Oh, goodness. This has been in the work on my side for a while, and then I still happen to find some bugs today. So I already need to post a 1.1. But someone had asked about this in Discord, and although there is a official integration coming, I built out a module for Cove because we were using this enough internally, and I was using a bunch of jank before. Then I just started breaking out a whole bunch of common actions and actually put a lot of effort into this one, surprisingly, compared to most of the stuff that I've done. All of it is nested. All of it has error handling. All of it has standardized output with messages that will still pass a success, but then throw an error. So like from an auth flow into nested into add users into a nested get user, like I don't know how many people actually need this thing, would use this thing, but I'm gonna have it up on GitHub shortly. So once I fix those couple of bugs, you can feel free to import and mess around because I need some feedback on this thing. I also found while messing around with their API, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do once you've authenticated that they don't have documented because it's not built out in their JSON RPC method. This method that they use, because of how it passes the keys, from what I've seen, also can't be a custom integration at this point. So it needs to be a series of of actions because it's all HTTP calls. But yeah, this is my Mona Lisa for the last couple of months. Questions? Thoughts?
Anyone
from
has
the
any
public?
questions for Devon? We've got 20 minutes left. So questions for
Devon,
Devon or questions for us?
Are you single?
No, today is actually my 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations!
Anniversary.
No, but seriously,
10
so
years,
this has the normal JSON RPC, but does this also have that statistics API that when you're browsing the Cove page itself, that you can zoom into what specific failures are for a backup? Because one of my engineers was working with that recently to try to get that specific data surfaced as well.
So I haven't gone that far. There's you can still pull basically every column. The Cove API, similar to IMMY, is entirely exposed in DevTools.
Yeah.
Which is also where that I found. So when you do an authentication, all of their RPC stuff works based off that visa, but they also give you a bearer token at the same time.
Yeah.
Which then you pass to access their recovery testing and all of their undocumented stuff.
I need this. I need this in my life. No, my engineer was actually, we recently decided that most of our monitoring should be API based. Well, one of my engineers decided that. And this is actually one of the things that he found a little bit of challenge in, especially because that statistics API is, it's a bitch to access, generally speaking. It's one of those APIs that's really annoying. So if you've done all of this pre-work, I can just give this to him and be like, look what I made.
Yeah, a lot of this is largely built out on the reporting. This started out as I just needed to do backup counts before I started spinning out into this whole thing. So there is actually a billing report that I built because there's two different billing models, whether or not you're on the new or the legacy model, pulls two different methods. And then 365 also pulls differently as well. So that was the initial reason that I even started working with the API, and then I kind of just took it way too far now. Now it's a thing. So yeah. So yeah, I will get some bugs fixed, get my GitHub updated, and then I will post that in Discord.
Amazing. And does this include negative type savings?
If only. It's just not there.
Well, that's good. Saves you time.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're wrapped up for everything scheduled. It's so difficult sometimes to coordinate these things. Sometimes we breeze through everything and sometimes we have no time left over. So today's one of those days where we go back to some roots and we chat about what you guys want to chat about. I saw Aaron flickering there. I'm not sure if you wanted to jump in.
Well, I guess we start with, is anyone building anything that you want to show off? I put you on the spot. Don't be scared. I built a PDF generator. A PDF generator in Rewst? It looks like Brett's working on something that at some point he'll be able to show. Okay. What about folks who are building stuff and have questions? Anyone hit an error with their workflow that they're working on and you want to have live troubleshooting in front of 170 people?
But it better not be a permission issue since my demo. You now know how to fix that.
Dan asked the question. Is scrolling too fast for me here. Was it a serious question? Sometimes you people, I can't tell whether you're like joking questions or real questions. And then I read it out loud and I'm like, oh, that wasn't a real question.
Dan's question, does anybody have a workflow putting the ImmyBot install script into a client's Intune at onboarding?
It's use Sept for that.
Ask for that, by the way. A built-in task in Immy to do that, if I'm not mistaken.
There is.
Actually, I have a question. And my camera's not facing the right way. Hang on. There we go.
Hi, John.
Is there a reason why incoming webhooks only accept GET and POST requests? I get errors from Istio if I send anything else.
Do we have a Devon that has knowledge of the webhook system? We may not.
You might be the first person who's tried that. So yeah, we may have to escalate this to Dev.
There's it says you can put in allowed methods, but if you pick anything other than GET or POST, it just gives up.
Yeah, I believe that's Willis, Aaron. Yeah, we'll have to escalate this to Dev.
What's the method that you're using?
We tried a number of things, put, patch, delete, options, anything other than GET or POST gives up. With
My
an error
feeling
message.
is if it's Istio, they have probably limited the request types, and we just need to unlimit them at Istio. Is my feeling.
That's what I figured. I meant to ask earlier, but I forgot.
Yeah, we can get a dev ticket open for that. Mose is asking how the new instance is coming along.
Do we have Mike on from the dev team? I don't know who we have on.
Mike's not on.
Do you, Nick, do we have any ETA on the US instance?
Yep. So we are really close on the Frankfurt instance. Should be available probably within a week, probably next week. The US West instance is next in line. I believe it's a bit more than halfway done. They're all scheduled to be wrapped up by September 16th, so very soon.
Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about when people think of multiple product instances, they think it's just get the infrastructure up and running, install it. Do you want to talk a little bit about the marketplace work we had to do?
Sure. So, because Rewst has a crate marketplace, we can't be asking the Roc team to build and manage all the crates in 4, 5, 6 different regions by manually recreating them or even copy pasting them between different environments. We need to have one centralized global marketplace that all the regions can connect to get distributed content so that we can maintain consistency across all the different regions. That's a bit of a challenge because, with different regions, we have different regions in completely separate AWS accounts. And so how do we make a globally accessible, bi-directional database that, we can, write to and read from and distribute this content to all these different regions? We found a solution with DynamoDB, Amazon product, that allows you to create a globally available data store that can be accessible from multiple AWS accounts and regions. So we use that in a combination of S3 to do our crate maintenance and distribution to all the different regions. In addition to that, Rewst infrastructure is fairly complicated at this point, and we use a number of tools like Kubernetes, Redis, RDS, Postgres. And we have a number of third-party tools that we use as well. Things like Auth0 for authentication. We use WorkOS for our permission system. And so we need to, create instances, an instance in each of those tools for each different region. And then you think about, okay, now we want to deploy code. Well, it was easy to just deploy code to one region. Now we have to, scale that process in our CI/CD system to work for multiple regions. We need to update our deploy script so that we can easily deploy to all of these regions. We need monitoring for all of these different regions so that we can get alerted when there's high lag or if there's any kind of service disruption. So there's quite a lot that goes into all of this. Mike, the engineer who's been working on this for the past couple of months, made a really smart decision. We're using CDK. It's an Amazon product for configuration as code. So if you've ever used something like Terraform or heard of that tool, CDK is basically the Amazon flavor of that. So we basically recreated all of our infrastructure as code. And then that allows us to more easily spin up and manage these different environments. So if we needed to do something like update our Postgres database or provision more storage or create an S3 bucket, we can write that as code and then run that code against the different environments to automatically spin them up, keep them in sync, and manage them all easily. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing with multiple regions for Rewst. It's been a pretty big project, and we're pretty close to some really cool results for everybody. And I'm excited about it.
Hey, I sort of have something. It's not really done, but I looked it up because I knew it used 3 different webhook calls, and so I just did a put and it worked. So there might be something specific about that last issue.
Okay, yeah, we'll make a ticket and we're going to need to investigate that. Istio is like a network security tool within Kubernetes. We use it, to prevent, malicious requests against like our own infrastructure. And there just might be some configurations where we're being a bit too strict. We might have to take a look at the specific requests that, are getting blocked and check out our logs and figure out exactly why those are being blocked.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, like Tim mentioned, it's likely that you're probably the first person to try to use something other than a post or a Git.
Dan Hayes was able to use patch and delete. I think John was trying to put some malicious characters in that webhook.
I'm definitely interested to see what the cause is at this point.
I can't even goad him into a response.
It is CTF time, so.
Oh, this was like a couple weeks ago, so maybe you guys fixed it.
It's possible.
I haven't tried again. It was for the CTF registration challenge. I was trying to use other verbs than get or post, and I was limited. But that challenge is now over. People can register at will.
Now, it is like when you set up the webhook, you do specify which methods are allowed. So if you're using a pre-built trigger and you didn't set up the trigger, then it's gonna be whatever the trigger's parameters are set for.
You know what? I just thought about it. Maybe are you using wait for result in that?
Yes, because we were trying to give them the response back.
I wonder if it has something to do with that. Is that I'm not doing that like whenever I'm trying to reproduce it, so I wonder if that has something to do with
the
it.
workflow I've got with a put has wait for results.
Okay, that strikes that theory then.
I will try it again.
Might have been a bug we accidentally fixed. So looking through the chat, Laura says she has a workflow that she could show, but needs help with the last step. Laura, do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's help.
That's a great use case.
Sure, I can help. Share my screen. Here's my little bitty workflow. Sorry. So what this is for is to send a monthly maintenance letter for our clients to let them know that what machines need to be updated with the Windows 11 update, feature updates, Windows 10 feature updates, and BitLocker and .NET updates that all require reboots. And some, and like the BitLocker can require multiple reboots. So anyway, I set this up to, basically it comes in here and it gets the list of companies from Automate. And then it recurses through those and pulls the group, the computers for that company in the group, right? And it creates a list of BitLocker computers, Windows 10 computers, and Windows 11 computers. Then here it gets the company, it gets the, originally it got the default contact for the company, but my boss wanted to change it up and send it through our account managers instead. So it comes in here and gets the account manager from the account. It sets up the, it gets the company ID. It gets the account manager here. The team member, if the team role name equals account manager. And then here it parses that out so that we can return that information into a readable format. So then, going back over to here, sorry, that thing keeps getting away. It comes down here and it sets up the letter, right? So right now I've got this blocked off with my little false, but here's where I need the help. So it does the Microsoft Graph send mail, and here's where I need the help. Because originally I tried the core send mail, and I have a HTML template that this comes out in. Basically the HTML template has we'd like to perform some maintenance tasks, and it tells you these ones need BitLocker, these ones need the feature update, and these ones need the Windows 11 updates. So it does that, and but when parsing it back out, if I'm using the core send mail and I've got the render markdown set to true, it's still, the HTML still comes through in the request. In the email, so it looks, it's not in a readable format. It did work with this. However, because I'm running this now as my ITGlue employee, and we don't exist in every context for the client, and I'm running per client, I'm getting an access is denied error. But it does actually, if I change this if I'm running this just for my ITGlue, it actually comes through perfectly. So I guess that's my question. How do somebody told me to try this with a send as, or not send as, but the run as set to the Rewst org ID, which I've tried that.
Laura.
Yes.
Just clarifying, you're trying to send it, like you're trying to run the workflow at like one of your client levels, but you're trying to send it from your MSP level, correct?
Correct.
I actually had the same exact issue, and the way I got around it was I actually set a workflow listener at the MSP level that was listening for a webhook trigger, and then called it from the child account and passed everything from the child account back up to the parent via webhook.
Oh.
Yep. And so the reason why you have to do that is you can't, from a workflow, run as org to back up to a parent level. and it's just to prevent any kind of abuse from a sub org. So you wouldn't be able to run as org for the parent workflow, but that's a really good workaround. There's two ways to do it. One is, like you mentioned, Dan, is a webhook trigger. The other thing you could do would be a completion handler that would kind of do the same thing. You just have to set those variables up in the workflow that calls appropriately. And the reason why your core send mail didn't render the HTML, if you want to look at that, it's kind of maybe not the most intuitive way of explaining it, but that last field is render Markdown. So with that, we expect you to use Markdown, which is different from HTML. Markdown is the simplified, like what you would use in like GitHub or in either the Markdown fields that George was showing earlier for App Platform, I think it was, which is a much simplified version. So you could write your template in Markdown. You would lose a lot of the fancier formatting, but it would do the job. I don't know if we can directly send HTML through the core send mail. I'm sure there's a way we could do it with the body. Yeah, I'm sure we could just by making a multi-part MIME email, but that's a little bit more tricky.
Okay. All right, I like the workflow listener idea. I can definitely do that. I didn't even think of that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, very good question. Yeah, and cool workflow. I like this. The way you formatted the data.
Thank you. Yeah, it actually comes out really nicely when it comes out. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, Aaron, we are a minute out.
Yeah, brought us to time.
Perfect timing, Laura. With that, we had like almost 170 people on the call. I want to thank the presenters for presenting. It can be stressful in front of such a large group. With that, the good news is we'll be back here again next Friday, same time. See you folks then. Have a good weekend, everybody. Hopefully this is your last meeting of the week.
Meow.
See you folks. See you, Jim Barry.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.